types. Not counting bosses, we've only got 3 enemy types. Puppies, spoons, grandbabies. I'm not counting missile/gun spoons or explodo puppies. Oh, and good. I'm not exactly sure that few enemy types is an actual criticism that can be levied against NeverDead, unless you didn't play the game. From my count, and yeah, I am including boss fights as an enemy type, because why wouldn't you consider them an enemy type? And I consider missiles and machine guns to be different types of deadly objects. There were around 20 different types of enemies. Sure, the roster isn't as varied as a Final Fantasy game, but there were far more enemy types in NeverDead compared to video game news outlet darling The Last of Us. But does NeverDead really have only a few enemy types? Going strictly from memory, NeverDead had dog demons, rolling demons, spoon demons, womb demons, missile shooting demons, machine gun shooting demons, bat demons, hula hoop bear trap demons, spike ball of death demons, demon demons, hippo demons, avant-garde demons, shield and morningstar demons, razor blade spoon demons, which is a reskin, giant snake-headed demon that turns into a flying arm-eating bug demon, giant quarterback demons, double-crossing glowing guy demon, vamp from Metal Gear demon, Lord of the Demons demon, and I'm probably forgetting some. On the other hand, The Last of Us had the infected, clickers, floaters, humans, and that one deer. What I'm getting at is the amount of enemies does not matter, as long as their implementation makes sense within the world. If the enemies provide a decent challenge, and more importantly, are fun to fight, then why should the amount of enemies matter? The enemies of NeverDead force the player to employ a variety of strategies to clear out an area. Some require guns to defeat, others can be killed by swords, but you'll find using the environment is usually your best bet. NeverDead's enemy design shines best during the boss fights, as the bosses are treated more like puzzles, just like your standard Zelda game. My personal favorite boss fight is the museum bug boss, where the strategy requires you to toss an arm in the mouth of the boss and use your severed arm to shoot its stomach from the inside. Like a normal game, the boss fights get incrementally more challenging as you go along, with the last couple of bosses being a true challenge. You learn the enemy's patterns, you find out their weak points, and if you really need to, you can restart the level and equip the perks to fit the situation. I don't see where that got lost in translation here. I guess I was just too busy killing everything in sight to stop and count the amount of enemy types in order to decide if I was having a good time. I'm sorry, I'll try harder next time. Style over substance. I'm not going to spend too much time arguing if the game is trying to be more stylistic than other third-person shooters out there, but reviewers made claims that NeverDead was attempting to emulate the style of Suda51. They made it out like the game was attempting to be the next No More Heroes or Shadows of the Damned. I didn't feel like NeverDead was trying to deliberately rip off the style of Suda51. I mean, that guy is just way too unique in his own right to even borrow anything from. But speaking of borrowing, I didn't hear anyone complain about Lollipop Chainsaw having a lead character be a decapitated head that attaches himself to bodies to solve puzzles, but I digress. What I'm saying is, I can't fault the developers for taking inspiration from other ideas. But that claim in and of itself is kinda hard to prove unless the director deliberately states that yes, Suda51 was my inspiration. But as long as they're not blatantly ripping off their muses, I'm fine with it. Nothing wrong with improving on previous models. Let's face it, NeverDead was not the first game to tackle immortality as a game mechanic or as a storytelling device. The Wario Land series experimented with invulnerability with its protagonist protagonist and shifted the gameplay to cater to more puzzle solving and coin collecting. In 2005, Stubbs the Zombie starred a dead protagonist that could remove his own body parts, use them as weapons, and regrow them on the spot. And last but not least, Mistwalker's Lost Odyssey followed protagonist Kime as he ventured through life as an immortal man that begins to remember the several lifetimes he had lived and left behind. Can I see any sort of stylistic influence or outright copying from Suda51's work in NeverDead? No, not really, unless you want to consider all off-the-wall storytelling to be as borrowed from Suda51. It's okay for directors to dip into the abstract and bizarre, and it's okay for stories to be off-the-wall entertaining, and directors shouldn't be called a ripoff for having highly stylized games. It's just a shitty accusation with no basis to back it up. And you can't even jack off a lightsaber in this game. Penis and anus imagery. Jesus, Jim, don't act like you're above a little anus play in games. You gave Splatterhouse a 7.5, and you literally have to rip the anus out of your foes to defeat them. You even said, from pulling out a demon's lungs to punching through a monster's puckered red raw anus, the splatter kills will make you laugh, if nothing else. You're not above a little penis play either. Let's put that aside. I guess I wouldn't call myself a penis and anus imagery aficionado, but I do know it when I see it, and I didn't see it in NeverDead. There isn't a boss in the game that needs to be shot in the anus to defeat it, but to try and make sense of this, I think he was referring to the first boss, the Sword Pig. It's basically a giant hippo with a swordfish spear snout. To defeat it, all you have to do is slice at its legs a bunch, and you can shoot at its glowing yellow weak spot, but it's not really an anus. It's more of a tail with an angel statue attached to it, like all the other enemies in the game. I'm not one to argue anal semantics here, but this is literally the only example I could find of an anus throughout the entire game. I tried to take notes to find any sort of a fart sound effect or a poo-poo coming out of a monster, and there's nothing to be found within NeverDead. This is probably the only thing that could be considered shocking, and ooh boy, how shocking is it to attack a monster's butt? Well, here it is. This is the enemy defeated. Are you shocked?
Given the opportunity to do so many creative things with a character who can tear off his head, NeverDead instead jammed its own up its ass. Oh, and good. God dang it.
That is a very shocking and tasteless attempt at humor. I can't believe someone would write that. The penis-nosed demon Jim was referring to is Sangria. Speaking as an amateur phallic philanthropist, I can even tell that Sangria's nose is a nod to Victorian-era party masks, but no, I guess Jim didn't let the blatant Victorian wig and tights throw him off the dick trail. I couldn't take away anything from this criticism other than thinking this might have been Jim's projection or his very own attempt at being shocking in his review. I never once thought NeverDead was trying to be shocking, but more in the lines of a typical comedy with arcade-like gameplay. Something along the lines of Smash TV. I mean, how can something be shocking without at least including one dead baby joke in the writing? Incidentally, there is a dead baby in the game. Can be attacked during cutscenes. I'm just going to address this head on. I'm going to say that no, you cannot be attacked during cutscenes. Want to know why? The cutscenes are pre-rendered, so no game engine assets are being used. Not to mention, the cutscenes generally take place before a chapter begins, before you fight a boss, after you defeat a boss, or at the end of a chapter. Times when there's no action happening on the field. Not once in my entire 2 playthroughs of the game was I ever attacked or killed during a cutscene. Am I calling Jim a liar? No, at least not in this instance, but the way Jim bolded and italicized that portion of his review made it sound like this was a frequent occurrence that would be experienced by all players. If it ever happened at all, which I doubt it did, I find it strange that not one other reviewer had shared the same experience of being attacked during a cutscene. And for a group chomping at the bit to rake NeverDead through the coals for the smallest transgression, I would consider this sort of game-breaking bug low-hanging fruit, and I'm gonna chalk this up to bullshit until proven otherwise. I didn't feel like doing a British accent, so here's a quote from Jim Sterling. The reviewers are referring to Bryce's partner Arcadia, who is not even with you for half the game, and she goes off on her own most of the times, but when she's with you, all she does is shoot at enemies from afar. Yes, she can be knocked over, but reviving her isn't really a big deal. You just go over once and then you press square and then she's back alive. Throughout my playthrough of the game, she was only knocked over twice, and one of them was a scripted event that teaches you how to revive her, and the other time was whenever I was lobbing some grenades around and accidentally knocked her over. As mentioned, she mostly just stays out of the way and helps fire at enemies from a distance, but doesn't really do too much else. Yeah, she's not the best partner in the world, but she doesn't hinder the game either. Even motherfucking Owen Good came out and said, "There's a puppy, there's a spoon. Thanks, Arcadia. You're a very helpful partner. At least reviving you is only a single button press. Owen Good." And that motherfucker didn't even beat the game. I know this next segment's gonna be a little bit off topic here, but it was too batshit crazy to leave out. Nothing tops the madness that Casey Lynch of IGN said about Arcadia. Bryce's partner Arcadia Maximil is a mortal agent who is confounding as Bryce is unlikable. She clearly has daddy issues, preferring to do her top secret life-threatening demon hunting work in a deep cut, one-piece sweater blouse dress that barely covers her privates, with choice lines like, "Ew, that was gross," and a perpetually accentuated bust line. The developer casts her lovingly rendered bosom and derriere as the star more often than the character herself. Let me ask you guys something. When did game reviews become Freudian analysis? At no point in the game did I look at Arcadia and think, there's a woman with an Electra complex. Can someone please explain to me when having boobs on a character became a criminal offense? I mean, you don't have to have a cock-shaped nose to smell the agenda coming off that review. Not only is Arcadia a classic helpless princess in need of constant rescuing, she's portrayed as stupid, ditzy, self-obsessed, and objectified by her costumers and the game's peekaboo camera angles. Looking through a crazy-eyed doo-doo lens, I can't even see how Arcadia could be considered a damsel in distress. I mean, in the opening cutscene, she takes out one of those puppies on her own without any help, and when we're first introduced to Bryce, it's only after Arcadia kicks open the fucking door and shoots him in the goddamn head to wake him up. Arcadia constantly shoots Bryce throughout the entire fucking game to get what she wants.
What was that for?
Arcadia owns her own apartment, she's the top agent in Nada, and she bosses Bryce around without even paying the guy. Who is the real victim here?
I will kill you if you touch any of my stuff, like this.
Oh!
What?
What the hell was that for?
What?
If anything, she should be a feminist fucking icon. I don't get it. This is a fictionalized character, not a real human. You're taking Western feminist philosophies and applying them to a Japanese creator and expecting him to play by your rules. But don't take it from me, take it from the horse's mouth himself, Shinta Nijiri, on his basis for creating Arcadia.
Everybody, do you see that sexy character in the background, Arcadia? Man, do I like those knee-high stockings and that miniskirt.
Oh, what the fuck?
Thinking of that, there was somebody in college that I really had a big crush on. She looks just like Arcadia, and personality I think was the same too. I would ask her on a date every single day that I saw her. I tried maybe about 20, maybe even 30 times, and she kept on saying no. So I finally gave up. But I still think about her when I see Arcadia.
I take everything I said back about the feminist being crazy in this one case. This guy just doesn't pass the smell test. If anybody out there has access to the internet, please look up missing person cases around the same time Shinta went to college. Any missing girls that match the description of Arcadia from NeverDead, he's your culprit. He did it.
Man, do I like that ponytail of hers? Well, personally, I actually like ponytails. I like short hair, long hair, perm, curled. Well, basically, I like any kind of hair.
Nu metal music. The soundtrack takes a page from early 90s white trash kidcore games. It's akin to Road Rash, Twisted Metal, or one of the many ECW titles. I both loathe and love the fact that Megadeth got together to make an original song for NeverDead. Now, I can't play the Megadeth song in question, but the soundtrack isn't primarily just nu metal. You have your synthesized beats, piano medleys, and even some J-pop thrown in for good measure. If you absolutely hate nu metal and it's a deal breaker for you, then I suggest turning off the in-game music and spinning your own. Torture this soundtrack is not. It's actually pretty good in some parts. I recommend giving it a listen. No multiplayer community. Out of all the complaints, I would say that this one is 100% accurate. I tried to join one multiplayer game at least once every day since starting this review, but not surprisingly, no one was playing NeverDead in 2015. I believe there might be a few explanations as to why. First off, most of the reviewers received NeverDead at or near launch, before gamers even had the game in the first place. Even after launch, not many people were likely playing because at its core, NeverDead is mostly a single player game. Either that or they were trying to beat the game first because many of the multiplayer assets are unlocked after beating single player. I have zero experience with NeverDead's online, and I haven't been able to find a review outside of Co-Optimus which spoke highly of the co-op and horde modes. Not to mention, the negative reviews likely led to low sales, so any chance of a multiplayer community forming was destroyed from the get-go. Even still, most multiplayer is shoehorned into modern games because companies find single-player games to be a large financial risk. I don't fault NeverDead for not having a community, but one day, I hope to play with a group of crazy like-minded individuals who can sit back and enjoy limbs and bullets spraying over a destructible landscape.